While today, fans of the mighty silver ball get to enjoy high-quality recreations of tables, both new and old, on their gaming systems of choice, it wasn't quite as clear-cut during the early days of video gaming. Instead of trying to emulate what was right beside them in arcades and amusement parlours, the creators of early pinball video games aimed to do something a little different when attempting to transcribe the mechanics of pinball onto an electronic medium. Out of all those early efforts, the most memorable ones were a trilogy by Namco, GB, Bombi, and QDQ. Whilst the purists among you might find it a bit of a stretch to call them pinball games, their basic layouts combined with Breakout style control mechanics made for quite an interesting experience nonetheless. But how is this relevant to the humble Commodore 8-bits? Well, flash forward a few years to 1982, and with the launch of their first consumer micro in the shape of the VIC-20, Commodore would work on a number of arcade-inspired releases, including one based on the last of those titles, Pinball Spectacular. Like its arcade forebear, Pinball Spectacular has you controlling a paddle and deflecting the ball in order to rack up points. And well, when it comes to controlling a paddle, there is no better way than with an actual set of paddles. And yes, it's time to dig up those trusty Commodore paddles and enjoy this just as it should be played. On powering up the humble VIC, you get an initial explanation talking about the gameplay. Then move on to the options screen where you can pick your number of players, and then it's go time. Essentially, racking up a high score with Pinball Spectacular requires a number of elements. Firstly, clearing out the bricks from the two sections on the side. As those are cleared, a ghost will appear. Hitting this with the ball gives you a bonus on how high its rotating multiplier is. Then you've got the middle section. Firing the ball up past the spinner and hitting the ghosts there will earn you more points. And as the ball makes contact with the lower paddle, you'll add an extra row and respawn them all. Lastly, you've got to light up the 5 faces at the bottom of the screen. When they all get lit up, your end of ball multiplier increases, giving you the chance to earn some serious points at the end of a ball. On the VIC, Pinball Spectacular really puts the mechanics to good use. The graphics are colourful, well defined, there's some nice clear beeps and toads giving you that very early arcade feel, and using the Commodore paddles to control the game really makes this fun to engage with. It's far more fluid and responsive than it would be if you were just using a plain old joystick. That isn't the end though, as with the launch of their next machine later that year, it should come as no surprise to see that Commodore would adapt Pinball Spectacular onto their new piece of gaming hardware. Though, unsurprisingly, it wouldn't actually be released until the following year. The first thing worth noticing here is that the table's been reworked. Now, considering the problems Commodore had when bringing across some of their VIC-20 titles to the West, where games like Star Battle and Jelly Monsters simply got new names, and Radar Rat Race was the result of something which originally started as a conversion of Rally X. It's no surprise that they went down this path, though I'm not sure it's just me, but I kind of feel like I see echoes of Bombi in the table layout here. Though it's got to be said, the new layout does take advantage of the extra resolution the C64 offers over its predecessor, with adding more obstacles and remixing things just enough to not end up being a direct copy, which is a bit of a criticism one could certainly level at the VIC-20 version. Once again, it's all about racking up points here, but the twists to the gameplay are just enough to vary the formula a bit. Sure, the block areas are still here, but they don't really work the same way. Instead of the central monster pit, you've got a solitary Commodore chicken beak. But the biggest change to the gameplay is with the multipliers. Instead of rolling over each of the markers on the playfield, you need to hit what is probably the equivalent of drop targets, each marking a letter of the giant Commodore text located at the bottom. Now, one element which isn't a surprise here, being such an early release, is the presentation. While the VIC-20 version offers a very simple front-end menu alongside that opening text crawl, the 64 version overlays its number of player selection on its main screen, kind of reminiscent of the other early Commodore releases developed by HAL, who unsurprisingly developed this as well. Pinball Spectacular offers a glimpse into a different time for pinball video games. In fact, when I come to think about it, it's the last such title produced in this style, as home hardware started getting to the point where you could produce much closer approximations, with titles like Night Mission Pinball, David's Midnight Magic, and especially exemplified with the release of Pinball Construction Set, offering those more richer experiences instead. Despite that though, I actually quite enjoyed checking out Pinball Spectacular. Yeah, it's quite a simple game, it's early, and honestly, if you don't already have a working set of paddles, it can be a pain to hunt them down, but it offers something which, in its own way, hasn't really been seen for a long time. It's a peek into a different evolutionary path of a pastime which, for those of us, is quite a different beast compared to what we play on our home computers. And with that, I just really wanted to say thank you all very much for watching. Bit of a quick one this week, but honestly, Pinball Spectacular is such a nice little game that I thought it'd be fun to check out. As always, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.